Hi, Chris. Thank you for joining me today. It's a pleasure to have you. As a thought leader in the contact centre industry, it's great to have you here to talk about the challenges facing contact centres at the moment. Before we get into it, it'd be great just if you do a bit of an intro about yourself, your overview of your career and your current sort of role at the forum.
Yeah, perfect. Hi, Matt. It's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure to be here and just talking about some of these challenges. I think so my background's varied. I've been in and around contact centres since the mid-90s. So it's quite a while now, and I've held varying roles. I started off in telesales of all places, which was a baptism of fire for a 17-year-old youth, trying to find his way through college and then working on an evening trying to sell double glazing. But I started back there, and I fell in love with the industry based around people, really. I always felt the kind of industry in a way, even back then, was all around people and the kind of relationships that we built. So I stuck around for a few years, doing that in the kind of mid to late 90s. I then diverted off and went to work in the pub trade for a bit, as most people do as well, and ended up being a retail manager for Tetley's Brewery for a couple of years. And then when I moved to the northeast in kind of year 2000, just the turn of the millennium, I kind of went back into contact centres again. So I started working at an organisation in Gateshead, now Whistle Group, or Spark Response at the time. So I spent a few years there before moving to Empower and spent 8 years at Empower, which was great. And I held different roles, from advisor to team leader, ops manager, call centre manager. And then I moved into kind of those supportive functions, resource planning, quality assurance, insight. I deployed things like speech analytics and all that type of stuff. And I fell in love at that point with helping people. And around that time, I started attending events at an organisation called the Professional Planning Forum, as it was back then, and started going to conferences and events. And after a couple of years, they asked if I'd want to come and work. So that was back in 2012. So then I spent some time there. I left the Planning Forum, which turned into the Forum. And again, to broaden my own horizon, and went to work with the vendors. So I went to work with a technology provider. Spent 5 years with the technology provider, looking at it from the other side of the fence. So, looking at kind of what technology can we do to help the contact centres and the agents and the managers and the leaders. Spent 5 years working for a vendor, and then started this year, I came back home, came back to the forum as a director to help build the learning programs, the best practice programs. And it's just great to be back, and I'm just loving being back out and helping people again. It's great fun.
Amazing. Well, great. It's great to have you today to, like I say, have a chat about the challenges facing contacts. And so at the moment, what, operational leaders, contact center managers, what challenges are they currently facing over the next sort of 6 to 12 months?
So I think the challenges are the hangover of the pandemic. I think the challenges are driven from there. We did a lot of good stuff during the pandemic. The challenge we've got faced now is we've got to rebuild reputation. Not just from an industry perspective, headlines are out there, the call centre is on the brink of collapse, and you see all these things out in the press. And I don't believe that it is, but I think we've got an opportunity to really start to recover more from the pandemic and start to operationalise some of the things that we temporarily put in place to deal with the situation that we're in. But the biggest three things for me, and probably the biggest three things that we've always had to look at in some way, is the absence challenge, and I'll come back to that in a second. But the absence challenge, the attrition challenge, or the skills gap that we've got now, the resource gap that we've got now, that capacity gap. We just don't have enough people to deal with demand that's coming through into our businesses. And then the other side to that then is how do we attract that talent? And how do we get the people into an industry that's probably not best regarded currently, and how do we make people feel welcome, included? So that drives us into that discussion around two sides: flexibility, and how do we virtualize our contact centres more strategically? What does flexibility mean for people? How do we deliver things like more flexible scheduling, more self-scheduling, those types of things? But also the flip side to that is then how do we retain the people that are in our organisation, and what's driving people to leave our contact centres? And we've seen an uptick over the last few months, years, really, just around this idea of kind of the presenteeism. So
Yeah.
people, and especially the pandemic, people stayed in a role during the pandemic that they might not have been happy in, but where was that goal? And actually, they had that job security.
Yeah.
If they'd not, if they weren't getting furloughed, they had a job which was better than a lot of people.
Yeah.
So they probably sat in a role that they didn't really like for 2 years, and then that's what drove that big resignation debate at the end. And well, actually, now we're back on even keel, I can start going looking for that role that I want.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So we've got this idea now, this presenteeism, which for those that it's a term that's been around for years and years, but I think it's one that we really look at, and where we talk with our members is like, okay, so how can we highlight or understand when people are present at work but attending it? So I had someone talk about the week, so it's like attending work in spite of illness or mental state of mind. So when you're at work, you're not really performing to your full ability. You're kind of there, you're not absent, so you're there, but actually you're not being very productive. You're just ticking the boxes to get through the day. You've got those things on. So it's kind of understanding that. And we started to do, we've worked with organisations that have done research into it, and actually the cost to the economy is higher than absence. They're saying it's 24 to 28 billion pounds a year.
Wow. Yeah.
That it costs us as a business, as an economy to deal with it. And we lose about 1.5 days to presenteeism compared to absenteeism, which is about for every 1 day of absence, there's 1.5 days of presenteeism. So it's about finding the balance, and how do we understand our people more, and how do we create the environment that they're going to want to thrive in.
Absolutely. And in terms of like the contact centres, whose responsibility is it to sort of identify sort of presenteeism and, I suppose, ensure this doesn't start to rise?
It's everybody's responsibility. But I think if you can create a culture of openness, so a lot of it is because people are afraid to speak up. They're afraid to say they're not happy, or they're afraid to say that they're not feeling 100%. You might have HR processes in place that kind of drive that behaviour. For example, you might have a sickness policy that says you don't get paid for sickness until you've had 3 days off.
Yeah.
So actually, well, I'm not going to take the time off. I'll just work because I'm not going to do it. But so it's understanding as leaders that we have a culture that allows people to share and open. They don't get chastised for some of these things, But it's understanding there's two flip sides to it. There's the people that are there and not being productive, and then there's the other people that are there all the time. So these are the people that are doing the extra overtime. These are the people that never miss a day off work. You physically have to force them to take the holidays sometimes. The people that are always there. That can be equal. That's another variation of presenteeism, because there might be something happening in the personal life that means that they don't want to go home, or they don't want to be at home, or there's something happening that actually when they're at work they're safe and they're happy. Again, they might not be as productive, they just don't want to be somewhere else. So it's I think we've just got to understand that there's different levels of it. Responsibility to understanding what some of those triggers might be. And it's all right operationalizing it and creating, we see now people having these mental health first aiders, all these great initiatives that are happening at an operational level. But what's not happening sometimes is those lines aren't being drawn towards policy and procedure. So it's that thing about making sure whatever you do here from a supportive culture perspective is encompassing the whole organisation. So, if they do take a couple of days off because of a mental health concern or whatever it is, just feeling stressed or burnt out or tired or whatever it might be, we don't send an auto alert from HR to say you've hit your third trigger of absence and when you come back you're getting on a written warning, for example. It's these types of things that we've just got to make sure culturally we're creating the environment that are going to allow people to open up to us a bit more. And
I suppose, in terms of presenteeism, how for leaders out there, what do they, need to start doing to start to properly move forward with this, and start to put solutions in place so they can actually understand more about how this sort of works and the balance between being absent and sort of being in work but not fit for work?
I mean, there's loads of research out there now, Matt, and we've done a few sessions on it where we've had kind of networking groups and discussions around it. But the starting point is understanding that it is a potential problem. Because I think in every organisation, there'll be some people that deal with it. We've all done it. And from a home working perspective, as we become more flexible and we allow people to work from home more, it's going to rise a little bit. Because actually, it's easier just to log on and sit here and do my job, be less productive. I've logged in, so I've ticked the box, my time card's been stamped, whatever it is. It's a lot easier to do that in that kind of hybrid or home working environment. So I think we just got to make sure that we understand that it's a problem, look into it and speak to your HR colleagues, look at occupational health, look at these things that say, right, so as a collective, what do we need to do to help identify the signs? There's technology out there that'll help, there's mood indicators and all these types of things that people can get access to, just by doing some research that can, talk to us at the forum, we can point in the right direction. But there's things out there, but the point is that to move it forward, recognise that it could be an issue, and then work together collectively to understand how can we start to create some of that that kind of well-being approach to dealing with people. Yeah,
absolutely. I think you're right in terms of, I suppose, from an operational perspective, people always think, if you're a bit ill, stay at home, work, it's absolutely fine. But it's that, because operations, of course, want the productivity, but I suppose it's trying to, get people to understand that balance between, yes, they may be off for this day, but you know what? When they come back in, they're actually going to be a lot more productive than what they would have been, because they could take longer to recover, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, 5 days. Someone working for 5 days when they're in a rundown state, is worse than kind of letting them have a day off. Yeah. It's about finding the right balance, making sure policies and procedures don't chastise. And I think the other bit to it is just, we do develop things. So things like, you get, some organisations will do rewards for attendance. Yeah. It's ridiculous, but it drives that behaviour. Of course, so, these people that come in who are ill, whether it's mentally ill, it's different. Yeah. Because they're in a mental health state, so that's insular typically. Yeah. But it can, if they're at a low point, they can start to, degrade relationships of those around them because they might not be approachable at the time, whatever it might be. Or if they're carrying some kind of cold or virus or something like that, and then they kind of trigger an outbreak in the operation, you then lose it again. It's about just making sure that you can identify it, understand it, and let people know it's okay to take time off if they need to take time off. And then the role in operation is to make sure we're planning for it, we understand what our shrinkages are, build time into your plan that allows people to take some of those breaks, extra breaks in the day if they need it, whatever it is. We've got all the tools and the knowledge and the right mindset now, as I think, as an industry, to make it a really engaging place to work, more so than ever. And I think we can just look at that and go, you know what, we can build that into our plan if we say, you know what, simple things like allowing people to pick their own break during the day. So you say, right, you've got an hour of breaks during the day, take them when you want, when you feel you need to. So rather than people hiding away in kind of after call work and then getting managed for performance type related issue, just give them the flexibility to manage their time a little bit. That says, you know what, I've had a really bad couple of hours here. And, I just need to take 10 minutes away. So I can come back a bit more refreshed. There's little things that we can do that will help, but there's more strategic things that we can do that can set the culture. So there's a lot of options for people. It's not an easy fix. But it has to start kind of at that strategic level that says, this is what we're going to do for our people. It comes out of anything in a period where we're struggling to retain our agents, in a period where we're struggling to attract the right people into our business. One thing we can control is how we manage people, how we lead people, and the culture we create in our organisations, because the decisions to leave become harder if the support and the culture is right. Of course. When that support and that culture is right, and that's a good selling point, then when you're trying to attract people in, you get an extra hour a week for breaks, or this time, or we've got this available to you. We've got this, it's those types of things that kind of keep people engaged, and we just need to be more mindful of it as we go forward. No, absolutely. I think, there's that sort of mentality of, he's not well, but he's coming to work and he's getting on with it. And, that's probably the thing that needs to sort of
I suppose, recognition for turning up and giving them some money for that. It's probably need to change. And
it's that pat on the back culture, is it? It's that pat on the back culture. You're soldiering through. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
It's like, come on.
Been ill all weekend, but you're here and you're giving it a go. Whereas theoretically, that they should be at home resting up, and and that's you talk about the the great attrition and all that sort of parts of it. There's these obviously factors will influence that. And you mentioned planning there. So are people now starting to plan for this? Is this part of the planning sort of models that people put in?
So we're seeing lots of different options. So we're currently going through a research project which will share results of kind of probably after the summer. But we look at this one, how are people looking at scheduling for it to be more flexible for people? How does that kind of impact on shrinkages? How does that impact on productivity? What can they do? And some of this is, some people are going all the way over here and just letting agents select their shifts and saying, right, this is what we need. Just pick when you want to work, as long as you do your kind of contracted hours. We've got others that are saying, right, your shift's 8 till 4. You can slide it if you wake up and you're feeling a bit kind of down, you could push it to a 10 o'clock start. So we've got that ability to kind of self-manage the shift in the day, depending on where they feel. Again, talks around being able to slide breaks and lunches to when they want and take that time off when they want. And the other thing that we see more people invest in is this idea of from a support perspective, is creating time for learning and making sure they've got that additional time within their day to develop themselves. So one of the other critical challenges we get from all this is, what skills do we have? We've got a massive skills gap, and we need to make sure that we are developing our skills for the future. And again, if we're investing in people's kind of emotional states through kind of supportive culture, but then dealing with their development stuff as well and giving them the time and support they need to improve themselves, again, it's all about retaining people. So culture, develop, and then you support as an organisation. You're filling your skills gaps. You're making sure you're getting the best out of people when they're available and they're fit and they're healthy to do stuff. And we're not creating a culture where people are demoralised, disengaged. That's where we start to get. That's where the trouble comes from, and that's where we get that kind of cycle of just churning staff, and we can't afford to do it. No organisation that I work can afford to churn staff at a high rate anymore. We just can't.
Absolutely, yeah. No, and you obviously mentioned that sort of learning. The forum is a learning organisation, like specialising in sort of contact centres planning, quality, that side of things. What are people asking you for at the moment to look at?
So we get loads. We've got a full learning academy available with over 200 kind of modules of different stuff. So we have people that want to look at technical skill. So what we're seeing is that a lot of people, especially in industry, we try to give people that real kind of professionalised role. So if you're a resource planner, you understand the impact of that. What we're getting more of is, how do we ensure the operation goes, looks across the end-to-end piece. So planning's not a functioning silo. Planning a part of the operation. So we're doing a lot more work with, say, planning teams and operational teams, team leaders, ops managers, to understand the roles a bit better, so they understand the planning cycle a bit more. They understand forecast. They understand scheduling. They understand the impacts in real time. So when they're making operational decisions, they understand the impact on the planning team, they understand the impact on the service level, they understand the impact on productivity, whatever it might be. So we're starting to see a lot more of that type of just joined up thinking and conversations. But we support all planning functions, but then a lot more going into more technical driven stuff around insights and reporting, and how do we actually create the right metrics and the right things that want to measure people on, or our operation on, what are the right things to look at. So we're getting more people looking and re-looking at their operational planning, but then their operational delivery, and then their performance management from there. What we actually measure against, what do we need to look at, focus on, to drive real value back into the business.
Amazing, excellent. That's one last question for now. I can let you go. What can people do to learn more about presenteeism? It's a topic which sounds like it's really important, but I suppose it's kind of getting that. Where can people go and find information on this to learn more about it?
Yeah, So if they go on my LinkedIn, we've posted a couple of articles recently. But, you know, our website as well. Sure, there's stuff on there, but honestly, it's just as easy. There's so much research out there.
Yeah.
So we partnered with a company called Sabio, one of the technology vendors. They've just acquired an organisation called People Matters. We spoke with Amy King a few weeks ago, and she's done loads of research into presenteeism and the impacts, and she's created tools to help people kind of navigate their way through it. So again, you know, you can find all that information on our website, and you can start to look at that. She's got this presenteeism wheel, so you can kind of rate yourself where you are today and where you're currently thinking, and all these great tools to kind of help kind of get you to where you need to be, and understanding different levels of presenteeism, because some are okay, they're not all negative. There's some good presenteeism in there, because people will, you know, find different reasons to be at work, and it can be a positive thing. It doesn't always have to be negative. It's just understanding the different types and understanding then how you can deal with that. But there's a lot to go at, and you know, the research is all widely available.
Amazing, brilliant. Well, listen, thank you very much. Great to speak with you. Great to learn more about presenteeism. I can let you go, and let's catch up again soon.
Cheers, Matt. Thanks very much.
Speak soon. Cheers, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, bye bye.